Alrighty guys, we're in the editor and we're looking at a gigantic Sasquatch. You can see these are actually fingers up in front of his face, man. You can see the line of his mouth. He's got that really extended lower lip. And this thing actually looks like a Martian or something, man. It's enormous, first of all. This thing knocked at me one time. And I think it was just to get my attention. The problem is I ran out of apples. And when these guys start coming around, after I've gotten rid of what they want, I have a tendency to like kind of shoot my footage and then leave because I don't want to be around them without what they came in for. So, you know, the bottom line is I'll be heading back and trying to catch this guy. But the reality of this footage is, and you can see him, he's right here. He's trying to hide from me while he watches me. And we can plainly see that this thing is there. The real question is, how is he able to give the impression that he's not there, that just his head's there? Because you don't really see a body right here on the other side of this tree. Now we got some blurry stuff going on, but I want to clear this up for you. This isn't three-dimensional film. It's two-dimensional. And where he looks like he's right up on all of this, this tree is literally 30 feet in front of this creature. I've stood there, right in this hole, behind this tree. And behind this tree is a hole, and he's in it, behind all of it. There's a huge bush back there, and he's standing in it. He could be up on the side of this one because this one is back in front of the bushes that he's hiding in. But this is at the front. You can see these vines and stuff. That's coming off these palmettos. That tree is right on the back side of these palmettos. That's 30 feet from this creature. But this film, two-dimensional, flattens it all out, removes the depth, which really causes us a great deal of difficulty since the bottom line is the phenomenon that washes them into a green also flattens out their symmetry and any depth on their face. We typically have to associate depth or relief or the contours of their symmetry by the highlighting of the colors that are on it. We can see raised portions because they're lighter in coloration. We can see raised portions because they're lighter in coloration, meaning the convex nature of the bone structure, the convex areas that stick out are picking up more light than the concave areas, like underneath this cheekbone, you can see shade, shadow. Inside the mouth line, you can see a line there. Inside the eyes appears to be darker, while on the outside you can kind of see a highlight and an outline. That's a lighter shade. In the shade of the tree, this side of his upper lip is actually darker green than this side of it, which is light and consistent with the cheekbone. Here we have our timeline, and this is obviously the viewing window. This is where the clip will appear and we can watch it, but this is the actual timeline, right? So this is where the workflow of what you're going to do is take place. You're going to be on this cursor all the time. What we're going to be going over is a technique called scrubbing. And scrubbing is one of the most important aspects of what we do as researchers. It's when we use our computers to actually identify the subjects that we were interacting with in real time. So what we're going to do is open the campout file. You can see I've got the iPad footage with the camp out with Cash and Lee in 2023. That's the file. I've got it labeled so that I can identify it and find it, right? That's the first thing, right? You don't want to stuff stuff in your computer and not label it properly. If you do label it properly, then you can search it and it comes right up, right? In most cases, as long as you're not on Mark's computer, which usually has about 5 other people on it from government agencies not allowing him to do all these things. But I'm sure you're going to start out and it's going to be clean. So what we're going to do is give you an example of a clean breakdown without a bunch of freeloaders watching the whole time. We're going to drag this down and we're going to put it on this timeline right here. And you can see how it just appears on there, right? From this file, it just transfers right to the timeline. So once we've dropped it and we're in the proper resolution, we can see the file now. We can see this thing. Right? Now here I am, and what's going on here is, and I remember this moment, it's significant in the expedition. It was about 30 minutes after we got there, and what we're looking at is Melanie and I responding to stimulus from that tree line. What is that? But we heard knocks, and then suddenly an eye-watering stink showed up at the campground. After tracing it for several minutes, I determined that it was coming from this corner. Somehow, it was thicker and nastier from this corner. Well, I'm remembering all of these things when I'm looking at this clip, and I'm going, okay, let me just think about that moment and what was really going on. And I watch myself on the clip, and I notice I'm turning my head, I'm hearing sounds, right? And I remember this, I'm hearing sounds, so I look to the left. Now I'm walking up, but I'm also walking up right and getting real close, and if you look, this branch is in my way. These branches are in my way. The individual is going to come out over here watching me. How clever that he has this in my way from seeing him, right? Now, that's not necessarily his doing. He's simply hiding over here, but I'm over here and I'm walking up. This is where I determine that there's something going on. I just heard noise in here. The smell's coming from this general area, and we did have a little bit of a swirl in the wind, but it was this general direction that it was coming from. So what do? We've got this on the timeline, and we want to see closer what's in here. So we're going to go over, first of all, and we're going to get the crop tool, and we're going to bring it up. And now we've got those 3 types of crops. We can trim this, which is basically this type of thing where you're going to trim the clip and actually make stuff, go away. Or you can switch over to crop, which is your standard crop. And when you crop it, you're going to be in closer on the footage. And that's what we want. But there's a third one. Now, this particular selection, you can actually control. The red is where the clip ends up and the actual size at the end of the zoom. And the green is where the zoom starts. Now, if I'm going to be zooming on a whole clip, which is what I would do if I'm doing this, I'm not gonna, because what it does is when you start this clip, it gets closer as the clip goes on. Now, that's an option for the design of a clip in the movie, and you could literally do that shot where I'm walking and somehow the camera's zooming. Now, Melanie's not doing that. This is post-expedition editing, bringing that shot closer. Now, I just literally changed how that shot affects the viewer when he watches it. Now, I can also open this back up by highlighting it, and you can see the action that we took, where it's green out here at the start point and red in here. And I could reset that if I want, normally. And for some reason, reset isn't coming on today. I'm not sure why that is, but there we go. Okay, so we're going to reset that, and it opens the clip back up. That's typically the way it's supposed to work. Now, we aren't going to do this because we don't want that. What we want is a nice stable crop in the area that the creature is going to be in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the standard crop, and we're going to control the area that we look at. This is what we want to look at. And now, the stability of the camera in these shots will determine what that crop does. So if I open this back up, we can watch what the crop's going to do in full screen mode before we ever do it. Now, we are looking in this particular area, so we want to make sure that the crop's there. If you look, if I put it there at the beginning, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be there at the end. At the end, the individual's over here, and it's looking at me. So we will have to adjust this crop in real time as we scrub. One of the things we want to do is we want to make sure that we start in the area when we're doing a frame-by-frame analysis of a clip, and also that we have enough light. So we're going to turn the screen brightness all the way up, and we're looking in this area. We've already got like a bunch of weird, there's somebody back in here. This is probably a couple of individuals. It appears to be that there are some individuals in here. The stink was unimaginable, but now, as you can see, I'm bringing my crop forward, and I'm paying close attention to this particular area. And what we can do to make this a little bit easier is expand the timeline. For some reason, man, my computer today is just not actually working all that good. I'm not really sure what to say about that. But anyway, we can see we've got something going on here. I mean, there is obviously something going on here. It looks like a huge gray face in there. You know what I mean? And you can see it plainly. You've got something going on here. It looks like a head with some hair hanging on it. Got like nose and a mouth area. But really, what's going on? And let's stick with the clip and let's see, because scrubbing allows us to reveal what really is going on. So what appears to be an enormous creature, as we move forward, it turns out, and we'll have to adjust this crop again, so you can see it's up here. We're trying to look here. We want to keep this in the center the whole time. So we're going to open it back up. We're going to blade it and separate that action of the clip, and we're back in. Now we're starting to see that something is changing in this view, and it turns out that there are palm fronds and weeds in this guy's face, and he's not huge. He's actually a little bit smaller. So as we scrub this clip back and forth, we can see movement in the creature's mouth. We can see where it like opens up just a little bit, when it closes. We can see if it's blinking, and we're scrubbing, and you can see each one of these lines is a single frame in this clip. Now we're shooting in 60 frames per second, or I'm sorry, we're shooting in 30 frames per second with this iPad. So we should see in every second of this clip 30 frames. That's what it'll average out to. So when we expand the timeline and get close and we separate those individual frames, every 60 of these gaps is going to be 1 second of footage. So in 1 second, you have 60 chances to get a clear frame. And I can tell you that what you're doing on this back end and the quality of what you get depends on how stable you shot the footage on the front end. Because when you're scrubbing, oftentimes, if you're too close, here's what it looks like, and you can't really tell. And when you're moving through the clip, it's blurry. If you're shooting and you're zoomed in and you're not zoomed in enough, then you have to use this timeline to zoom in, and the quality of the footage always drops. So while we're shooting in 4K, we've zoomed in from about 60 yards away, and now we're looking at about 160 resolution, 220, somewhere in there. It's horrible. It's like 1992 YouTube videos, you know what I mean? And we don't want that. So we have to find a happy medium, and scrubbing and learning how to use this timeline and your zoom tool up here will help you to do that. It'll help you to find the appropriate distance. We can see this individual now. If we go in 400%, it's almost the perfect distance. You can see me, you can see the tree line really well, and you can get a pretty good sense of what's going on there. And as we move forward, you can see the individual literally comes peeking out all the way. And I think what's happening is this little weed here is being pushed to the side a little bit at the same time as he's leaning out. Because what we notice about their behavior is they don't like to give away sharp, fast, visible movement. They'll move extremely slowly. They'll reach up, and you can almost see what appear to be little round things right here on the side of this weed. Is he pulling this to the side? In the footage, it's inconclusive, specifically because we're so far away when we shoot it. If we had our zoom camera poised on this, we might have other individuals crystal clear next to this obvious face here that's watching us, but we don't. Our cameras continuously get zapped in these situations. One of the reasons I don't have my camera with me when I approached over there is the battery's dead. We hadn't even shot footage with it yet. So what's going on is we're confirming by scrubbing this clip and using the tools available. Right now we're zoomed, so we're not permanently changing the clip. We're zooming in on it and then controlling where we look at it through the zoom control window. Right over here on the right hand side, you can see that little hand. It's like a little glove. I can move it to see various parts of this tree line at any given time during my scrub. This will enable you to see detail that you normally wouldn't see when the clip was playing in real time at actual distance. And this is what it is. Show me that Bigfoot. That's it. That's the whole clip right there, right? That's the whole section with the Bigfoot, because we already scrubbed it through here And we know, looking, that he's not visible. There might be other individuals here. I'm not about to debate whether that's true or not. We know there was a group of them around us. But the reality is in this clip that we just scrubbed, from scrubbing it, we know that until we get to this section, the individual doesn't appear. We can see it. There's a bunch of blobby stuff. And then when we get to this section, suddenly the individual appears in the footage. And we're going to crop him in one more time. And we're going to show you. That's about the distance that you want it. You can see it to start at. Give people an idea of how large that creature is by staying back enough to where they can gauge trees, they can gauge saplings. You can see this is a large branch. Look at this over here. Just from scrubbing, are we picking up on other individuals? It's certainly possible we were around an area that has a history of sightings. Look at this huge whatever this is. And we've got this guy already, so we know there's something going on. There's possibles here and over here. But scrubbing is what's revealing this. I can get in closer anytime I want by using the crop tool the way it was designed to reveal the creatures that we, in real time as human beings, have difficulty seeing. We can hear them. We can smell them. We can identify the general area all of this is coming from. And yet, when we walk over there, the creatures are using the topography and the environment against us. Scrubbing is our greatest weapon because it allows us to go back in time and slow time down and take a real close look at exactly what's watching us. Alrighty guys, so we're looking at how we can alter and see what's going on in here. We've got a lot of shapes going on, and it could be some really large creatures in here along with this guy. But one of the things we can do is we can actually come over here and we can adjust the exposure. So we're looking at a piece of film, and this is the natural clip right here. The creature's in here, and we're really having trouble seeing them from that distance, so we did our crop, and I'll turn that back on, and that's the actual crop, creature being here, or creatures being here. And now we're going to demonstrate, right? We're going to go right over here to this color module. Here's the timeline film strip, and if you're highlighted, this is the index for what's on your timeline. But this is also an index for making adjustments to the film itself. So we highlight which clip we want to adjust, and then we move into this area where we see this little color thing. We'll be typically in this setting, and then we'll click on this, and here comes the color thing. We could adjust color here, which we don't want to do. We can adjust saturation, which is like the saturation of the color, the intensities. And then we can adjust exposure. And that's really basically all we do here besides zooming in. We adjust the exposure. And so to make it lighter, we see this is going to be the lightest parts of what was recorded getting brighter. And as we do that, we can see it adjusts, and we can see a little bit better into this hole here. But this one is the mid-tones of brightness. And so we can bring that up, and then we have to obviously let this render. You can see this line down here on the timeline, and it's slowly disappearing, and chunks of it are being eaten. That has been fully changed to this brightness level and this brightness level now. That clip is ready to be reviewed. But what we want to also do is we want to add a little more contrast. So we're going to bring the darker areas down a little bit and then readjust because we want this to pop. And we also want to be able to see in the shadow. It appears that there's something else going on in here. So we're going to bring this up a little bit more. And now we have a little bit better idea that there is some kind of a symmetry going on in here. When we move, we can also literally see that whatever this is behind this little guy that we know is there is moving. This could be some vines hanging down and literally the face or forehead of an individual on this side as well. If we watch, we're seeing movements, and we even get frames where we can kind of see this thing has a mouth, a nose. It looks like a big Jabba the Hutt. See, people think Bigfoot look like Patty, and this is not what they look like, man. When they're walking out in the open, you get a real good look, but there's so many different variations and how these guys actually look, that it's not like you're researching another species where a squirrel looks like a squirrel, so you're looking for a squirrel, man. You know what I mean? You've got to be on your game with identifying that the creatures are there in the first place and how to document them to even begin to see what some of these individuals look like. So using the computer in the ways we're showing you by applying these filters, and you can literally make it to where the contrast on this thing is incredibly sharp by just adjusting. Now we've got a sharper contrast, but this is the kind of stuff that actually reveals the creatures that are in here. It allows for the separation of color. We're filtering through the noise of aberrant color. This is the natural look of it. Now, if I take my crop off and I highlight this clip and I go back over here and I start to bring this up, even from this distance, you can see that there's some strange stuff going on. Right here's his head. So me, I come in, I know what to look for, and this is one of the general shapes. Even from this distance, I can tell that's an individual. We turn the crop back on after we've made those adjustments to the exposure and the contrast, and we can see these guys plainly. This appears to be a really big guy. But see, the camera is having trouble, and there's also something in front of him. It's like a vine or some Spanish moss, possibly. But just looking at it, it's like you can see these creatures in there. Guys, so we are here in the editor, and we're looking at him. I got him 2 days ago in the afternoon by myself. You can see here's even the bald spot from my drawing 2 years ago. You can literally see this dude's bald spot. This is where the nose is. It's the exact same nose. I caught him on film, guys. Finally, man. He's just in a different position. Actually, he was a little ways back, and it was really difficult to see what was going on in here. You can see his whole face right there. I knew something was there. I couldn't see the details from the distance, but upon looking at film and scrubbing it, we got banner. And I'm talking about down to the exact detail from my drawing of what I saw and what is still somehow bonded, corrupted to the memory card. The footage of this thing in 4K is destroyed, man. And the memory card can't be used. It was like some kind of a high electromagnetic signal was happening while I was filming the creature. Now this time that didn't happen, but with the other camera, I shot the clips and I thought everything was fine, but it apparently didn't record even though the camera looked like it was recording. This time, So this is from the actual encounter when I recorded him, and here he is, and you can even see the bald spot right up here. It's like weird how I couldn't figure out what it was at first, and then I realized when he turned to the side that it was his skull I was seeing in it, and it was peppered with like little bits of hair. He had a bald spot. And then it was interesting because when he turned to the side a little bit and he was muttering down to the side, he was like muttering sideways down. And it was in the same spot. He was just about 20 feet further on this side. So he was over this way when I saw him. And while I was filming him, he looked down to his left and looked to be like he was communicating with another one or something. And when he did, I saw the skull went back. Like it was almost just a really big human skull, and the hair was coming off the back of the head into this point. And he looked like a tailback on the football field sometimes they have that pad that sticks up past their helmet. That's what it looked like. You could see that this was balding, and his hairline receded, and it was coming off the back of his head. It was something else to see, man. And literally, man, I threw up. And almost threw up on my window as I was driving away. I was so shaken from the encounter. But anyway, guys, we're one step closer to identifying this individual again. And we're getting there. You know what I mean? We're getting there.